I sat in a coaching meeting one day with a man that we'll name Tom for the sake of the conversation. Tom and I were talking and going through the normal coaching process of just asking questions and digging deeper and finally identifying an area of his life that he wanted to work on. In the area that he brought to the surface, it wasn't me identifying it, but as a professional coach with all of my coachly abilities, we eventually landed on the topic that he wanted to talk about, and that was this issue in his life of pornography. And while I am not a therapist, okay, just for the record, I have my master's in divinity, I'm a pastor, have been in the professional world forever and been working with men specifically for 20 years, much of that in one-on-one coaching conversations. There's a lot that I bring to the table, but not specifically a therapist. I just wanted to jump into this topic with Tom. And as we started talking, I know enough about the topic, and not to play pop therapist or anything, but just started asking about his family growing up. And I just said, you know what, Tom, as you think about your life and growing up and, you know, what was it that you wanted most as a kid? Like, think back to the time that you were 8 to 10 years old. What was the thing you wanted most? He started talking and just kind of sharing things, and I started asking more very probing coaching questions. Eventually, he landed on this. He said, you know what? I think the thing I wanted most was connection. What I wanted was connection specifically from my dad. I was like, oh, there we go. So we jumped into the topic and helped walk him through a process of coaching that eventually started to lead him on a path of freedom from the issue he was struggling with, which on the surface looked like pornography, which really in the back was really a desire for connection in his life. I know that if you're a therapist and you're listening to that, you're like, that's exactly what happens. The surface issue is one thing, the thing in back of the thing is the other, and getting to that and help walking somebody through that is really what it's all about. I want to welcome you to the Next Stage podcast in our series that we're in called Freedom from Porn. Today we're talking about family matters. And it's kind of a continuation of the topic that we started on our last episode. Really, we are going to center, just like we do every one of our episodes, around one thought. Just one thought that I want you to take away from today's episode. And honestly, it's the same thought we had last time, and it's this, that understanding your story around porn can lead you out of porn's trap. Understanding your story around porn, understanding what was back there and how you got where you are today can help you lead you out of its trap. But you have to have the strength and the courage to excavate that story. Welcome to the Next Stage. I am so excited to be part of this with you. I'm your host, Rob Stout, and along with our team, I want to invite you into this as part of your summiting of life's climb as you are in your journey as a man. And if you're a woman, listen to this. We invite you. You're not, pushed out by any means. If you're listening to this, I would encourage you, though, to send this on to a man in your life who maybe this can help. You know, in this series, we're in Freedom from Porn. It's really just about more than just kind of white-knuckling this issue, kind of like, I'm going to do this, you know, like the weight loss thing. I'm going to lose 20 pounds, and, you know, but all you can think about is food. We're really getting into freedom from this. And the idea not to lose is understanding your story around porn can lead you out of its trap, but you have got to have the strength and the courage to excavate that story. The idea is that it's not something out there. It's not just a societal evil, or as we talked about with Mark Brendy on our last couple episodes ago, it's not just leading into the sex trade, or as we talked about with Cody Holland, it's not just the biomechanical stuff or the mental processing, not biomechanical, but the mental processing and the hormones that are going on chemically in the brain. But it's something in here. It's something that has another piece to it. And this really gets to that soulish level of this conversation. It's something inside. And I guarantee you this, if you have the strength and the courage to step into your story, it will give you tremendous insight into yourself and into helping get free of this issue in your life, maybe once and for all. What this is not, however, is we take a look at Family Matters. This is not a drag your parents to the town square and behead them, or hide behind the human shields of your mom or your dad and refuse to take responsibility for your life. Not at all. Not at all. My friend Tom, my client Tom, that I was sharing with you earlier, he was one who stood 100% in his own responsibility for his life, and yet also took a look back and just said, how did I get here? What is the roadmap from where I was to where I am? And it began to make sense how where he came from kind of had something to do with it. And while he took responsibility and acted, it was very insightful for him. And so that's why we're taking a look at this. Not a blame game, but instead a journey from where you were to where you are, where you're able to stand at a different point of responsibility in your life. So I asked Tom, I said, Tom, began to ask some professional coaching questions and very well-sharpened, well-honed, quiver full of many questions, and just began to dig with him. And I just said, what did you want? And he landed on this thing of connection. I'm wondering if that connects with you. Does connection connect with you? Does the idea of, man, I just wanted relationship. Can you relate to that? Can you relate to the idea of just wanting connection? Here's the thing I know about your mom and your dad growing up, whether they were present, not, whatever. I do know that no parent on the day that their son or daughter is born ever looks at that kid and is like, oh, here we go. I got one I'm going to screw up today. I'm going to load them with stuff in their life that they may never be able to get away from. No, whether or not your father or your mother were present or died young or whatever, every parent gives the best that they can possibly give. And yet it's incomplete. I know that with my own kids. Not having the ability to be perfect, I just kind of put some things in their path that they're needing to grow in. But does Tom's desire for connection, does it connect with you? The reality is that even getting perspective from your parents' point of view of either divorce or workaholism or physical illness or maybe an early death, or economic struggle, or not really having the right tools. I mean, you cannot impart what you do not possess. Maybe they just were ill-equipped to be a parent. They left some marks on you, and chances are it led to an absence of connection, just like it did with Tom. Can you relate to that? So in this episode, we're taking a look at understanding your story around porn and how it can lead. If you have the strength and courage to excavate it, it can lead you out of porn's trap. You see, the problem presented with Tom, and I want you to think about this in relation to your life, is that I want you to very seriously think about this issue of connection. The kind of healthy connection that you were made for, that really goes back to the core principles that this podcast is based on. See, you were made for healthy connection of your soul, that passion area of your life. But if you don't get healthy connection, you won't flourish and learn to have healthy relationships with men and with women. And you might get off into fantasy land. Without healthy connections of the heart, that purpose area of your life, you don't have the ability to have proper boundaries and learn to relate in healthy ways. Without proper or healthy connection of that mind piece, that perspective piece, you don't learn to have healthy mentoring and direction in your life and healthy focus. The things you say no to and the things you say yes to. And so you can just kind of stray off. And without healthy connection, really with a mentor, with somebody who is teaching you the way, like we talked about in our last episode. You don't have strength or the power side of your life left, and you wander aimlessly, looking fervently for connection. It impacts your purpose, your power, your passion, and your perspective. Do you see what I'm getting at? I hope you do. Do you see what's at stake? You were made for connection. But without healthy connection in your life, like Tom was in search for, you go out and look for in other ways to go get it. And your passion, your purpose, your power, and your perspective are all impacted. And you can seek for it in many ways. It may not be in this topic of pornography. It could be in money and sex and power and possessions. It could be in just collecting toys. It could be in how much influence you have at work. It could be in any number of things, how smart you are, any number of things. But you are really in search of connection. And jumping into this, we said this on our last episode, it takes courage. It takes guts. I know many men who are up for physical challenges, no problem. They are tough. They are strong. They work out. They're core. Going to core power, going to the gym. Going to CrossFit. And by the way, do you know how somebody goes to CrossFit? It's kind of like being from Texas. They will tell you, right? But any physical challenge they will take. Any many challenge too. Men will take many, many, many mental challenges. They can do the work. They can figure it out. But when it comes to emotional challenges like we're talking about here, many men curl up in the fetal position and they're like, man, that's for women. I'm not wired that way. But the reality is that problem terrifies you and it's killing you. And what hangs at stake is your growth in life. And so I want to challenge you to be strong and courageous and to lean into this topic with me. And man, I get it. I'm with you. I'm with you in this journey. And I want to help you. So does our entire team here at Sherpa. So just like Tom, we're going to dig into family matters to find out where the broken thing is in the area of connection and how it led him to a struggle with pornography. But before we do that, our producer, Chris, is going to tell you about a really valuable resource that we have developed on this podcast to help men just like you get freedom from porn. So listen to Chris as he tells you about Sherpa Freedom Groups.
Man, are you tired of the struggle you know is holding you back? And I mean at the bone and marrow level of your soul. Hey guys, this is Chris, one of the producers at the Next Stage podcast for men. Your struggle could be an addiction to pornography, or it might be something else like drinking or eating, gambling, whatever. And you've heard Rob talk a lot about this. Recovery starts when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. This struggle is taking its toll on your life and holding you back from quality relationships with your wife, your kids, and those you care about. Your struggle is also like a heavy ball and chain, weighing down your career and even your life purpose. If you're not sick and tired of being sick and tired, you're probably not ready for what I'm talking about here. But if you are seriously stinking sick and tired of being sick and tired, then I want to challenge you to join a Sherpa Freedom Group. So what's a Sherpa Freedom Group? Well, we're not just talking about white-knuckling this thing. We're talking about understanding why we have this struggle. We're talking about how to overcome it. We're talking about understanding what makes a man's passion, purpose, power, and perspective. And then we're doing the hard work together of transforming in men who are in control, not being controlled. And we're doing this in community, not in isolation. We're calling and emailing and texting and Zooming and personally meeting when possible, sending smoke signals, whatever it takes to personally connect and help each other accomplish what we all want. Wives who respect and trust us. Children who don't fear us. Employers and clients who can rely on us. We're putting together a Sherpa Freedom Group, and we want you on board. Go to Sherpa5280.com/Sherpa Freedom Groups. right now and register for your spot today while they last. Again, Sherpa5280.com/Sherpa Freedom Group, or check out the show notes for the link. This will pay off not only for you, but for the people in your life that matter most. Aren't you all worth it? Men, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Are you?
All right, thanks, Chris. And so back into our story. How did Tom find where this broken connection came from, and how can you as well do something about it? So the plan, how would you begin to address family matters? There's a great resource that I would highly recommend that you pick up. And if we start selling books for this guy, Jay Stringer, I want some kind of royalty. But better yet, I'd rather have you on my show. So if this gets back to you, I would love to interview on this show. But Jay Stringer wrote a book that was really impactful for me in this area, and I know it will be for you. And it's called Unwanted: How Sexual Brokenness Reveals Our Way to Healing. And he talks about 2 family matters that we have got to face as men. And it's areas of our home life or the formative parts of our life that we have got to face in order to find freedom. 2 family matters is how I'm framing what he said. So think back again to growing up in your home, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your home. It could be a church background, it could be a school background, it could be a coach, whatever the formative influence was in your life, these things are play out. Okay, so jump in with me. The number one family matter that you've got to deal with is dealing with the effect of rigidity. Rigidity defined is this. It's when you grew up in a house or a formative system, a church, a school, whatever it was, where the rules were weaponized. The effects of rigidity. Rigidity, when your family was rigid, it was black and white. There was no gray area, where it was strictly run, where it was just kind of a place where it was just by the book, and here's the things you have to do. And this could be a church or a school, and I'll tell you my story about that here in a second. But Stringer says this. Stringer says on page 28 of Unwanted, children in these homes learn that rules are not like barriers around the Grand Canyon to keep people from dying. They are more like scarlet letters given to shame others into compliance. To survive, you simply comply or depart, often in dramatic fashion. That is well stated. Rigidity is something that forces you to either comply or depart, often very dramatically. In a study done by Dr. David Carnes, titled The Making of a Sex Addict, he found that 77% of people struggling with sexual addiction come from rigid families. That makes total sense. Total sense in my life, in my coaching life, in the lives of people I've seen. One man came from a very, very strict family that I talked with. Ultra strict rules, strict father, curfews, dating rules, no movies. It was run like the military, man. Had this kind of godly gloss on it, and they all had the perfect look. All the kids looked great. Everybody was taught to smile, walk in line, yes, sir, no, sir, which is great. I love yes, sir, no, sir. But the point being, it was very, very, very rigid, kind of a hellfire and brimstone type of a growing up. And the kid learned to fake it through middle school and just got to go along. But by the time this young man became a young man in high school, he kind of tossed the bird to the parents. Well, he didn't kind of, he did. And it just played out that he just went wild and jumped into college and just went nuts. Hookup culture, drinking, porn, got into everything he possibly could. See, he was one who responded to rigidity by not going for it at all, putting on the black sheep clothing and just kind of escaping. While he took personal responsibility for his choices as well in our coaching session, he was one who very clearly connected with this idea of how rigidity in his home influenced him to just go off the rails. Another client, very similar background. Very, how do I say, just rigid family, lots of tight rules, lots of things going on. Instead, he reacts just the opposite. While the one guy went this way and was the black sheep and said, forget about it, I'm going crazy, the other guy did just the opposite. He complied. He tried to keep up with every rule he could. Came from a dysfunctional family, but he towed the line. In the rigidity, he just thought he could keep the rules. He loved the approval he got as he kept the rules. And so he just kind of towed the line. But what happened with the questions of his life, specifically around his sexuality, was that he began, as he shared his story with me, that he began to just say, you know what do I do with these things? I can't really share them because I'm towing the line, and I think my sexuality is bad. And so he stuffed it down, and what he did was end up taking all of those issues underground. And it dropped into kind of a cave, if you want, where it was easy for him to pursue all of those desires privately in the potentially or the seemingly private area of pornography. So do you see how rigidity is either cast you in to be either the black sheep or the golden child? Some want to play along, and they just want to be the golden child, and they think they can do it on their own, and they think they could just get it done and have all of everybody's accolades because they're doing it great and they're the golden child. Meanwhile, they struggle with a really deep problem. Others put the black sheep label on themselves, kind of, just flip off the family and go crazy and leave them. It is very, very interesting to me. Another quote that Stringer had, he says this, he says, the recovery process of the black sheep is actually far easier than the golden child's journey out of a life of self-righteousness and hiding. Whoa. The recovery process of the black sheep is actually far easier. Why? Well, because they at least escaped this rigid home. It's far easier than the golden child's journey. Why? Because it looked so right on the surface. But they fell into self-righteousness and hiding. Boy, as I share a piece of my story with you, I was a golden child. I grew up in a really rigid, not a rigid family, but a rigid school. It was actually a church-related school, and we went up through late elementary. The guy who ran this school was kind of like, I don't know, I've talked to Catholic kids who grew up in Catholic school and they got whacked with the rulers and stuff like that. It was real close to that kind of a deal. People were scared to death of the superintendent/principal of this school. He would bring kids in, and this was like the 70s, right? So you could do this. They would paddle kids, and, I would be like, oh, man, dude, I'm scared to death. Not to mention, I just loved accolades. So I learned to be this golden child, and I became an approval addict. But you know what? I really began to wonder what to do with some of the pieces of my life as I developed as a young man. And I just continued to keep the rules, and I found that in my own life as a man in my early 20s, late teens, that pornography was a place where I could just kind of experiment, but really have no real women that I had to repent for or do whatever. Wow. I bet you can relate to that, right? That's a little bit of my story. Do you know what both the black sheep and the golden child end up in at the end of their journey? They end up as very angry men. They end up very angry. The black sheep, because he desired connection. The golden child, because he just wanted acceptance regardless of his behavior. Both of them end up very, very angry. Stringer also says that pornography appeals to powerless people precisely because it gives their anger an arena to be on full display. When you are viewing pornography, you are actually working out some of your family matters that are just angry about the connection you never had. Interesting stuff, right? Let's go a step deeper. Not only do you need to jump into family matters and understand the effects of a potentially rigid environment that you grew up in, whether it was your home, your parents, your school, a coach, whoever it was. But the other thing you need to deal with as you attempt to understand your need for connection, your loss of connection, and how you get it back is understanding the effect of disengagement. Whereas rigidity is kind of a desire for control, disengagement sends a very different message. Disengagement, where affection and attachment and connection is actually withheld, sends a message that says, you are not wanted. I don't care about you. Typically, it would be a dad who is so concerned with work that he just works, and never really engages, never really gives that son the attention, the admiration, the affection that he needs. It could be a mom as well, who is so tied to a socially accepted form of alcoholism called drinking wine that she's really never dialed in to the needs of her son. Disengagement. Dr. David Carnes, again, says 87% of people struggling with sexual addiction come from disengaged families. Those numbers are staggering. Both rigidity and disengagement lead to sexual addiction. There's an unbelievable human need, men, for engagement, for nurture, for guidance, for love, for involvement. Just a dad to throw the ball with you, a dad to teach you how to throw a spiral, a dad to teach you how to turn a wrench, a dad to teach you how to do math, a dad to teach you engineering problems or basic physics or whatever it is that you're into, or how to play the piano or whatever. A dad or a mom just to be there. But disengagement, emotional detachment, or physical detachment from being at work all the time or being abandoned, him leaving your family or her leaving your family, leaves a very, very deep wound. And disengagement sends the message, you don't matter. You're not wanted. And I cannot tell you how many men I've sat with as they have tried to figure out their lives, and they were wrestling with that question. I know there are a lot of Jay Stringer quotes here, but one I just love. These men, he says, quote, roam through life, never fully knowing they're loved and delighted in. They roam through life, never knowing that they're loved and delighted in. And so consequently, they go to porn to feel like a man, to feel connected, to feel what Mark Brendy, and I'm so glad Mark was here. Please go back and listen to those two episodes. I think they're 17 and 18, where Mark from I Empathize, my friend, talks about the issue of the connection between pornography and the sex trade. Mark said he sat with a woman who was engaged in, actually was being trafficked for years and years. And she said that the one reason men seek prostitutes is because of one word: validation. They want to know they matter. They want to know they're significant. They want to be validated. So back to Tom. What did Tom do in this process? Well, he was able to look back at Family Matters and kind of discover a roadmap that got him where he was at that point in his life. And it wasn't like a magic wand. I mean, there were a lot of different things working. It was his process here. It was definitely the mercy and grace of God that helped free him. It was help from a coach who helped him discover that. But there was the ability he had to take a look back that led him to freedom. And so let's talk about you. The big idea of this episode is that understanding your story around porn can lead you out of porn's trap, but you have to have the strength and courage to excavate your own story. So like Tom, what can you do? What are some practical things that you can do to begin to excavate your story in order to take a look at finding that connection that can lead you to freedom? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to help. One of the big words, the purpose, power, passion, perspective. I want to help you develop perspective of your own life. And I have a series of questions that I've developed to help you do that around this issue. And they are going to be on the website for this episode. Go to sherpa5280.com/the-next-stage. And there is a tool that's right there with episode 19. Download it and you can have it. But here's a couple sample questions that are on there that can help you develop perspective. Were you the golden child with the halo or the black sheep with the horns in your family? Or your formative culture growing up? Again, school, church, coach, whatever. Were you the golden child, halo, black sheep, horns? Well, which were you? What behaviors were expected of you? What happened if you didn't meet those standards? Were there any abuses of power you saw around you? What hypocrisy did you see around you? How did you react in that situation? There are a couple other questions there. I would encourage you to download that. But after doing that, I want to encourage you to try to touch that passion side of your life, that soulish side of your life. And really take a look at how you were set up in life, kind of the soil you were planted in life, and have an opportunity to grieve that. How did that make you feel? Did it make you angry? Did it make you sad? How did you react? Maybe you were angry and you were really, really mad, but right in back of that was sadness. A lot of men cover up their sadness in their life with anger. I know I do that a lot. How did you feel then? How do you feel now? Don't bury those things. Process them. Grieve the disengagement that you had or the rigidity that you had. Process that truthfully in your life. And man, I want to invite you to 2 concrete steps that you can take. One is very simple. Download that tool that I built for you to help you walk through those things. Go to sherpa5280.com/the-next-stage and you can download that tool for episode 19. The second goes back to what Chris talked about earlier, and that is go to sherpa5280.com/Sherpa Freedom Groups. I want to help you get in a cohort of men where you are able to jump into this issue of pornography from the passion, purpose, power, perspective side of your life, to begin to dig into your story in a group that can help you process that and can give you very practical steps that you can take to find freedom from this issue in your life. And imagine what freedom would feel like. Imagine that feeling of, maybe for you, it's standing on a beach and it's watching a sunset or a sunrise. Maybe it's going for a walk in the woods. Maybe it's playing a round of golf. Whatever that feeling of freedom that you get, imagine being free of that issue in your life. I want to help you get there. And there are two very practical ways. Download the tool on the website. Get into one of our Sherpa Freedom groups. I would invite you to do that. We've been dropping these breadcrumbs all along this episode, but I want to leave you with what we call our gold nugget. It's really the foundation piece of each of these episodes, and we just happen to get to it at the end. The pastor in your church may give it to you right up front. I give it to you right at the end because we built the whole road to get here. Now they were on the edge of their actual freedom and realizing the land that they were promised, but they had to fight to go get it. And Joshua stands in front of this nation and he says, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Dig down deep in your life and be strong and courageous and go get this. So just like with every episode, we end with kind of the foundation that each of these episodes are built on. It's a verse out of the Bible of ancient scripture, ancient truth. And I don't give it to you up front and then, exegete and walk through everything it's all about. I kind of do that at the very end and just say, listen, hang with this episode. This one comes out of Joshua 1:9. It's a story of the nation of Israel and how they came out of slavery in Egypt and all throughout a 40-year journey throughout a desert wasteland, and were wandering in a wilderness, and they were right on the edge of realizing their dream and the fulfillment of a promise and actually going to get it. But they had to fight to go get it. They had to fight to go after it. And Joshua, who was the leader who followed Moses in his leadership, the nation was handed over to Joshua to lead in battle. And he stood before this nation of former slaves and then wandering around the wilderness. And he stood before them and he used this term that we've been using throughout this episode. And it was, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous and go get the thing that's right there for you. And I want to encourage with those words out of Joshua 1:9, be strong and courageous. In the most desperate times of your life, I want to encourage you to use the power in your life to be strong and courageous in this area, to be able to understand your story and how it can lead you out of porn's trap, and having the strength and courage to excavate your story. Finally, the Next Stage podcast is brought to you by a fabulous team. I'm so encouraged to work with Mike and with Chris, also with Andy and Marcus. They each play a critical role. Mike and Chris are our producers. Andy does magic editing on this one, quite a bit of it. And Marcus does our social media, and we're so thankful for him. But I'm your host, Rob Stout, and we are here every 2 weeks. I want to encourage you to be part of our, I believe it's our 20th episode of this that we've produced. And so be part of that. We're going to talk about escaping the triangle as we take a look at a couple more family dynamics and how it sets you up for this struggle. Please remember to like, share, subscribe to the Next Stage podcast. We also invite you to click the bell icon on YouTube so you can be reminded about next episodes that are being released. We'd love for you to follow us on any of our social media channels. But if this has meant something for you especially, send me an email, thenextstage@sherpa5280.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions. But until next time, I encourage you to be strong and courageous as you work to summit life's climb. Go be awesome today. Be awesome in your world, and we'll see you next time.